Well, right now I am in a cemetery in Normandy, France, and as you might expect in a French cemetery, there are World War I graves and there are World War II graves, but there are a few graves in this cemetery that you would probably be shocked to find. There are a couple of Confederate soldiers from the American Civil War right here in Cherbourg, France. Now, you're probably wondering, what in the heck are a couple of Confederate soldiers doing in a cemetery over in Normandy, France? And that is an outstanding question. We're going to do some looking around and see if we can find those graves here in a little bit. But first, we are just kind of stumbling around the cemetery. Eric and I have been walking around, and there's some pretty interesting stuff here that we're going to take a look at before we try and find the Confederate graves. So as I mentioned, we are in Cherbourg, more specifically in the Cherbourg Communal Cemetery. And as we walked into this cemetery this afternoon, the one thing that was really the most striking is all of the graves from World War I. I mean, there are just marker after marker after marker that says Mort pour la France, or died for France. So this one, La Salle Paul, 15th of April, 1916. And something that is kind of interesting or different about these is they're made of metal. Now, it isn't just French soldiers who are buried here. They also have several Belgian graves. Now, why they have Belgian soldiers here in this cemetery, I honestly don't know. That's a bit of a mystery to me. But like this particular one died in May of 1918. I've seen several from, all throughout the Great War, from 1914 all the way through 1918. Here's one that's a little bit different. You can see a crescent and a star here. This is for, I'm going to really mispronounce this, but Monsieur Coro Rhone, who was a soldier from Senegal. So this was one of the territories of France in the Great War era. He died the 31st of October of 1917, and as you have probably already figured out, was not Christian, but Muslim, hence the different marker here. Here's an interesting grave that Eric just found. This is a World War I soldier, or he's in the World War I plot, named Marcel Bellet. He dies November 10th of 1944. So that's obviously World War II. And then if you look down here, well, it looks like perhaps he was a member of the resistance. So maybe we have a World War I soldier who survived the war, but didn't survive the Second World War during the resistance. Interesting. Right next to the World War I section, here we have another section of graves from another war. You can see like Jean Kuznich, who died in 1944, or Jean Dupree, who died in 1940. These are individuals who died in the Second World War. Looks like this one might be a mother and two children is what my guess is going to be. Oh, and here, look at this one. On this one, Madame Jeanne Nee Roland, died in 1944. And we also have a photo of her. But yeah, this is the World War II section of this cemetery. Also here in this cemetery is a plot from the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and I'm just now walking in. I just saw it and walked over here. Here's an E.J. Edwards, who was in the Royal Air Force, was a navigator, wireless operator. Died 22nd February 1944, age 21. Here we have another individual who was a pilot. Yeah, so just walking amongst this plot. Oh, here's a New Zealander right here. Walking around this plot, I'm seeing a lot of Air Force.
There's an American right there in a Commonwealth grave.
Oh, interesting.
That's really interesting.
All right, so here's.
I've seen that.
Look, Eric just pointed this out. Here's a W.A. Solheim, 26th of November 1943, age 24, and was in the U.S. Army Air Force, and he is in a Commonwealth War Grave. That is really interesting. So it looks like these are a lot of bomber crews and pilots who were shot down in the air war over France. So a lot of 1943s, a lot of early 1944s that I'm seeing here. So here right next to each other we have a Canadian and an Australian. And if I go back even further, I just noticed a couple of Polish fighters who were buried here. Wow, this is really, really interesting. All right, we came here with a specific purpose today and really just stumbled on this, and super, super fascinating to walk amongst these graves and markers here in the cemetery. But anyway, like I said, there are a few Civil War internments here in Cherbourg, so we're going to do our best and see if we can find these things. All right, we've moved to a part of the cemetery where you can look out and see the port of Cherbourg. And the past two episodes of History Traveler, we've looked at the battle that took place here in June of 1944. But you might be surprised to know that in June of 1864, there was another battle here that was part of the American Civil War that was connected to a Confederate ship called the CSS Alabama. Now, the Alabama was commanded by Captain Raphael Semmes. It was built in England and was really a commerce raider that was trying to disrupt American shipping. And for 2 years, this ship was like on an odyssey to try and do as much damage as it could to American shipping. And it was really quite effective. According to the American Battlefield Trust, where I'm getting a lot of this information, it made like 75 captures, and it was all over the place. It was like in the South China Sea and off the coast of South Africa, off the coast of India. Well, in the spring of 1864, it came into Cherbourg to get refitted. And waiting off the coast of Cherbourg was a U.S. ship called the Kearsarge. It was commanded by a guy named John Winslow. So Semmes had to make a decision whether he was going to stay where he was or try and fight it out. He decides to try and fight it out. What he didn't know is that the Kearsarge had heavy chains that was draped over the sides, and then they were covered with planks. So really this is an armored ship that the Confederates are going up against. Also, the Kearsarge had fresh ammo. The Alabama's was old and unreliable. And really, the end result is that these two ships scrap it out in June of 1864 out in the harbor of Cherbourg. and the USS Alabama is going to end up at the bottom of the English Channel. This is a story that is new to me. Now, anyway, they have a monument here to one of the Union sailors who was killed. He's not buried here, but if we come up here to this monument, well, this is in French, so obviously I can't read it, but if you come over here to the side, it says, "In memory of William L. Gower, seaman, who died on the 27th of June, 1864, from wounds received on board the United States sloop of war Kearsarge during the engagement with the Confederate privateer Alabama." And then it gives the date of the engagement here. And then they have another monument here that's to a guy named J.J. Allingham, who was an assistant surgeon with the U.S. Navy. But he died in October of 1865, so that's disconnected from the battle that took place here. But take a look at this. This is crazy to me. There are two Confederate graves right here in Normandy. So one is to George Appleby. He was a seaman with the Confederate Navy on the steamer Alabama, and you can see that he died the 19th of June, 1864. He was 60 years old. And then right here is James King, who also died in that same battle, and you can see he is aged 38 years old. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that I would come to Normandy and find Confederate battle graves from the American Civil War. And I hope people find this as interesting as I do, because it took us forever to find these graves. But man, this is just so fascinating to me. All right, well, there you go. Maybe you learned something today. I know that I did. The story of how a few Civil War soldiers found themselves buried right here in Normandy, France. Pretty interesting stuff here.